Known for his fearsome in-ring persona, the Junkyard Dog was a gentle giant outside the ring. But his life took a tragic turn when he was involved in a fatal car accident. What exactly happened that day? Let's find out. June 1st, 1998. It seemed like just another ordinary night on the open roads of Mississippi. But for one man, a man who was beloved by millions, it would turn out to be his last. The next morning, the wrestling world woke up to devastating news. Ritter, better known as the Junkyard Dog, was gone. If you grew up watching wrestling in the 80s, you definitely knew who Junkyard Dog was. He wasn't just another wrestler. He was a force of nature, one of the first black wrestling superstars to break into the mainstream. Junkyard Dog wasn't just known for his brute strength. He had this charisma that made everyone love him. That chain in his hand, his head held high, and the way he could get a crowd on its feet, it was all part of what made him so special. JYD got his start in Mid-South Wrestling, where he quickly became a fan favorite. From there, his career took off, and before long, he was a household name in the WWE. His hard-hitting style and his ability to connect with the fans made him a true pioneer in the sport. But beyond the fame, beyond the lights and the cheers, Ritter was, at heart, a family man. On that night in June, Ritter was driving home after celebrating something big, his daughter LaToya's high school graduation. It was a proud moment for him, as any parent could imagine, watching his daughter take her next big step in life. He'd made the drive from Wadesboro, North Carolina, back home to Mississippi, but tragically, he didn't make it. Somewhere on that lonely stretch of Interstate 20 near Forest, Mississippi, Ritter's car went off the road. The details of what exactly happened are still a bit of a mystery, but the result was clear. His car hit a tree, and just like that, Junkyard Dog Ritter was gone. He was only 45 years old. The news hit like a ton of bricks. It wasn't just his family that was heartbroken. Fans all over the world were shocked. One minute, their hero was there, and the next, he was gone. It didn't seem real. And the fans? They responded the only way they knew how, with love. Tributes poured in from all corners of the globe. Whether you watched him wrestle, met him in person, or just admired him from afar, everyone had a story about the Junkyard Dog. He wasn't just a wrestler. He was a legend. Even after he stepped away from the ring, Ritter continued to contribute to the sport he loved. He started training the next generation of wrestlers, passing down his knowledge and experience. Two of his biggest protégés, WWE stars Rodney Mack and Jazz. He wasn't just a fighter. He was a mentor, a coach, and a teacher to those looking to follow in his footsteps. Just months after his passing, however, an insensitive and ill-conceived promo dragged his daughter into a storyline, igniting outrage among fans and industry insiders alike. During a wrestling promo in the late 1990s, a wrestler made a remark involving LaToya Ritter, Junkyard Dog's daughter. This wasn't part of a long-standing feud or character arc. It was a cheap shot, meant solely to generate heat by invoking the legacy of her recently deceased father. The comment was seen as completely out of bounds, crossing the line from entertainment into exploitation. In professional wrestling, it's not unusual for performers to use personal jabs to elevate tension and sell rivalries, especially in the edgy attitude era of the late 90s. However, bringing a deceased wrestler's family into the storyline, particularly a child still grieving her father's untimely death, was a low blow that shocked fans. Fans were outraged. The comment didn't just anger those who loved Junkyard Dog. It crossed an unspoken boundary in professional wrestling. Families, especially the children of deceased wrestlers, are off limits. The immediate backlash was fierce, with wrestling forums lighting up with complaints and frustration that WWE would stoop so low for a storyline. Wrestlers themselves, many of whom had been friends and colleagues of Junkyard Dog, were equally disgusted. It was one thing to build drama with a rivalry, but another entirely to attack someone's family, especially after such a tragic loss. Even in an industry where the lines between reality and fiction are constantly blurred, this was too much. Fast forward to 2004, nearly 6 years after his death, the WWE decided it was time to honor the legacy of the Junkyard Dog in the best way they could, by inducting him into the WWE Hall of Fame. On March 13, 2004, just one night before WrestleMania XXL, Ritter got the recognition he deserved. His old friend, Wrestling legend Ernie Ladd was the one who inducted him, but it was Ritter's daughter LaToya and his sister Christine who took the stage to accept the honor on his behalf. It was an emotional moment. You could feel the weight of it. Even though Ritter wasn't there to see it, you knew his legacy would live on forever. Some haters say that he is already forgotten, but it is people like you and me who keep his legacy alive. He made a name for himself in Mid-South Wrestling and the World Wrestling Federation. His nickname, Junkyard Dog, came from his time working in a wrecking yard. In 2004, he was honored by being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. When JYD stepped into the ring, he was hard to miss with his signature chain attached to a dog collar, and his entrance music, Another One Bites the Dust by Queen. He became a huge draw, often headlining events that filled the Louisiana Superdome and other big venues. In fact, he was the first black wrestler to be the undisputed top star of his promotion. WWE author Brian Shields described JYD as one of the most electrifying and charismatic wrestlers of his time, especially during the early 1980s. He was famous for his powerful headbutts and impressive upper body strength, often body-slamming much larger opponents, like the one-man gang, Kamala, and King Kong Bundy. His wrestling trunks even featured the word thump, highlighting his powerful power slam move. In early 1989, JYD teamed up with Ivan Koloff and later Michael Hayes to take on the Russian Assassins. On April 2, 1989, he wowed the crowd at Clash of the Champions 6 in New Orleans by beating Butch Reed while a jazz band played him to the ring. However, things went south when JYD missed the WrestleWar 89 pay-per-view on May 7th and got fired. A year later, he surprised everyone by returning at the Capital Combat pay-per-view, thanks to Ole Anderson, the booker. By May 1990, JYD was in the spotlight, defeating Mean Mark Callis in just 39 seconds. He quickly got into a feud with Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight Championship, and even won by disqualification on June 13th at Clash of the Champions vs. Waynes. In February 1991, JYD won his first WCW title, teaming with Ricky Morton and Tommy Rich to capture the WCW Six-Man Tag Team Championship. They held the titles until June, when the Freebirds defeated them. After leaving WCW in August, JYD made a comeback on February 29, 1992 at Super Brawl Tsubutitsu, saving Ron Simmons from Abdullah the Butcher. He continued to wrestle and form different teams, facing off against various opponents. Later, JYD worked on the independent circuit, wrestling for NWA Dallas in the National Wrestling Conference in Las Vegas. He stayed active in wrestling until his death, even appearing at Extreme Championship Wrestling's WrestlePalooza event in 1998. He also created the Dog Pound Stable in an independent promotion in Louisiana. JYD truly made a lasting impact in the wrestling world. We miss you, legend. Thanks for tuning in, wrestling fans. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the incredible career of the Junkyard Dog. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our future videos where we explore more wrestling icons and their amazing stories.
It is an understatement to say he has made quite an impression. Yokozuna.
Yokozuna wasn't just any wrestler. He was a two-time WWF champion and a Royal Rumble winner, ultimately led to his untimely death. Let's take a closer look at the life and tragic passing of this beloved wrestler. Yokozuna was a big name in professional wrestling, especially during his time with the World Wrestling Federation. Born on October 2, 1966, he became famous not just in the US, but also for a stint with New Japan Pro Wrestling as Great Kukina. Though his character was Japanese, Rodney was actually Samoan-American and was introduced in matches as being from Polynesia. He had a pretty unique entrance too, often walking to the ring. He won the WWF World Heavyweight Championship twice and teamed up with Owen Hart to win the WWF Tag Team Championship twice as well, to grab the WWF World Heavyweight Championship. That win also got him a shot at the title at WrestleMania, where he beat some of the biggest names in the business, like Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan. But this legend was not free from controversies and troubles. Yokozuna really brought a unique pulled him and another wrestler, Vader, off the air to help them get in better shape. Despite the company's efforts, they'd sneak out for fast food. Shows you how tough it can be to break those habits, right? As Yokozuna gained more weight, his performance in the ring suffered. His matches became less dynamic, and it seemed like his physical presence was overshadowing his actual wrestling skills. This shift didn't sit well with many fans who missed the more exciting bouts that wrestlers are known for. The focus on his size rather than his ability made some of his later appearances less impactful in the wrestling community. He wasn't widely recognized back then. Other wrestler, Brian Pillman. Vince McMahon, looking out for the safety of his performers, didn't want to take any risks. Post-WWE, Yokozuna still hit the ring now and then on the independent scene. But sadly, while touring in England, he passed away in a hotel room at just 34 years old in 2000. Initially, there was some confusion about what happened, with people speculating it might have been a heart attack. Turns out it was pulmonary edema, fluid buildup in the lungs, worsened by his weight issues. Despite his attempts to slim down, it was just too late. Losing Yokozuna that young was a huge loss, not just for his family, but for the wrestling world too. It's a stark reminder of how the intense lifestyle and pressures of wrestling can really wear on these guys. Yokozuna, for all the challenges he faced, left a lasting legacy in WWE. He was one of the standout big men in wrestling, ruling as the top villain and headlining big shows like WrestleMania, even snagging the WWE Championship twice from legends like Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan. Most people loved him for who he was, but not one came close to Undertaker's affection and friendship for Yokozuna. The Undertaker and Yokozuna might have been rivals in the ring, but off-screen, they were really good friends. This is something many fans might not have known, because The Undertaker was so dedicated to maintaining his on-screen persona, which was all about mystery and being somewhat ominous. They actually spent a lot of time together outside the ring, often hanging out with their families. This personal connection helped them deliver an unforgettable rivalry that fans loved watching. In a candid chat on the Out of Character podcast with Ryan Satin, The Undertaker opened up about their friendship. He shared some lighthearted stories, like how their card game losses sometimes influenced their wrestling matches. Apparently, if Yokozuna lost at cards, he might have added a bit more force to his famous Banzai drop during their matches. The Undertaker also got quite emotional when talking about his times with Yokozuna. It's clear from his stories that their bond went beyond just wrestling. They truly cared for each other. This kind of friendship in the intense world of wrestling is quite special, and it's touching to hear how close they were. But then again, when there is something stellar, there are always haters too. Those haters said that this legend would be forgotten, but it is people like us who keep the legacy alive and keep the name of wrestlers like Yokozuna alive. To give an ode to his legacy, here is the career rundown that you would never want to miss if you are a real fan. Yokozuna's journey in wrestling kicked off in 1985, and it wasn't long before he was trying on different ring names and bouncing between wrestling promotions, from the local circuits in Texas to the big leagues in Germany. He didn't scoop up any big titles in those early days, but that didn't stop him from making a name for himself. In 1988, he found his way to Japan, wrestling as Great Kokina with New Japan Pro Wrestling. His time in Japan was pretty packed. He wrestled in several tours, faced off against top-tier wrestlers, and even teamed up with some international stars. Despite all this action, grabbing a championship title remained just out of reach. Back in the States, 1989 brought a new chapter for him as he joined the American Wrestling Association as Kokina Maximus. He really made waves here, especially when he famously ended another wrestler's career with his fearsome big splash. His stint in the AWA was short but impactful, leaving fans and fellow wrestlers buzzing. He then took his talents to Mexico's Universal Wrestling Association, still as Great Kokina, where he finally tasted some championship success with his cousins, winning the UWA World Trios Championship. More tours in Japan followed. That big singles title still eluded him. The game changed when he joined the World Wrestling Federation, UWF, in 1992. Transforming into the sumo wrestler persona, Yokozuna. Under the management of Mr. Fuji, Yokozuna quickly climbed the ranks, nabbing the WWF Championship twice and becoming a household name. His battles in the ring, especially those against legends like Bret Hart and Hulk Hogan, were the stuff of wrestling lore. But as his career progressed, health issues began to take a toll due to his increasing weight. Even with health challenges, Yokozuna didn't slow down in the mid-90s, snagging the WWF Tag Team Championships with Owen Hart. However, his health continued to decline, affecting his performance and eventually leading to his release from WWF in 1998 because he couldn't meet the physical health standards. Not quite ready to retire, Yokozuna still hit the ring occasionally, wrestling in the independent circuit until 2000. One of his last notable gigs was at the Heroes of Wrestling event in 1999, where he teamed up in a tag match Throughout his career, from flashy WWF showdowns to international and independent circuits, Yokozuna really left a mark with his unique character, imposing presence, and those unforgettable showdowns in the ring. Yokozuna's story is a poignant reminder of the highs and lows faced by many in the demanding world of professional wrestling. While he achieved immense success and garnered a legion of fans, his struggles off the ring highlight the real human challenges behind the larger-than-life personas we often see. His legacy, filled with both championship glory and personal battles, continues to impact and inspire both fans and future wrestlers. If you enjoyed learning about Yokozuna's remarkable yet challenging journey, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more wrestling history, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What other wrestling legends would you like us to explore next? Let us know, and stay tuned for more unforgettable stories from the ring. On August 26, 2024, the world of professional wrestling mourned the loss of one of its most iconic figures, Eudy, or what we personally love to call him, Sid Vicious. A two-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion and a two-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, Sid passed away at the age of 63 after a courageous battle with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. His health struggles weren't new, as he had previously faced serious heart issues, including congestive heart failure and atrial fibrillation, which showed just how tough he really was, both inside the ring and out. That same night, WWE Raw held a special tribute for him that really tugged at the heartstrings. They kicked things off with a video that brought back all those epic moments Eudy gave us, those big wins, intense matches, and that charisma that just lit up the room. Later in the video, Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley stepped into the ring and did something that made the toughest men cry. Priest summed it up perfectly when he said, "We are the masters and rulers of this world," echoing one of Eudy's famous lines. Then, in a powerful moment, both stars performed Eudy's signature moves, the choke slam and powerbomb, right there in sync. It was a beautiful way to remember him, showing just how much he meant to wrestling and to the fans. Born on December 16, 1960, Sid carved out quite a reputation for himself in the big leagues of wrestling, the WWF and WCW. Fans will remember him for his towering presence and the intensity he brought to the ring, earning him a whopping 6 world titles along the way. I know the hearts are heavy, so let's take a little trip down memory lane to honor our legend. Sid's wrestling career kicked off back in 1987 after he rubbed shoulders with Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo. Trained by Tojo Yamamoto, he didn't waste any time making an impression. Partnering up with Austin Idol, Sid clinched the NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Championship that very same year. His popularity only grew from there, especially after teaming up with his childhood buddy Shane Douglas to snag the NWA Southeastern Tag Team Championship. Sid also tried his luck overseas in Japan and dabbled a bit in world-class championship wrestling, adopting the infamous ring name Sid Vicious. Yes, just like the punk rocker. His American wrestling saga continued when he signed up with WCW in 1989, forming the Skyscrapers with Danny Spivey. Though a serious injury sidelined him for a bit, Sid bounced back strong by joining Ric Flair's Four Horsemen in 1990, showcasing his muscle and might. Let's get more detailed, shall we? Back in the day, Sid Eudy really kicked things off in the wrestling world when he showed up in the WWF on May 28, 1991. He came onto the scene as Sid Justice, and right away, he got thrown into the spotlight. His first big moment was being the special guest referee at SummerSlam 1991 for a huge match between the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, facing off against the Triangle of Terror. Sid quickly made a name for himself as someone you couldn't miss in the ring. With his tough style and massive build, Sid was perfect for some really heated battles. Come 1992 at the Royal Rumble, he made it to the final moments of the match, impressively knocking out big names like Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan. That move kicked off a big rivalry with Hogan and turned Sid into the bad guy everyone loved to hate. But not long after, a failed drug test got him suspended, and he left soon after WrestleMania the 8. Sid didn't stay away for long, though. He came back in 1993, but this time with WCW, calling himself Sid Vicious. He jumped right back into the thick of it, especially with a notable feud against Sting. However, things took a turn when a serious backstage fight with Arn Anderson during a tour in Europe ended with both getting hurt. That scuffle caused WCW to let Sid go. After that, Sid moved over to the United States Wrestling Association. Over there, he picked up his old rivalry with Jerry Lawler and even managed to snag the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship twice. His fights were fierce, often ending in disqualifications, which just added to his rep as a wild and tough wrestler to deal with. In 1995, Sid came back to the WWF with a new name, Psycho Sid, and joined forces with Shawn Michaels and the $1 Million Corporation. He was soon in the spotlight, taking on big names like the then WWF champion Diesel. Sid didn't win a lot of those title matches, but his intense attitude and strong presence in the ring kept him popular among fans. Sid's hard work really paid off in 1996 when he won his first WWF championship by beating Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series. It was a major highlight of his career, proving he could hang with the best. But his celebration didn't last long. He lost the belt back to Michaels at the Royal Rumble in early 1997. Not long after, Sid managed to snag the championship again, but his victory was short-lived as he lost to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 13. In 1999, Sid went back to WCW and was introduced as the Millennium Man. He even had an undefeated streak, kind of like Goldberg's famous run. Sid also won the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship, but his rise was cut short by his rivalry with Goldberg, where he faced several defeats. Sid didn't give up, though, and eventually made it to the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, winning it twice in 2000. Even so, his time at the top was filled with a lot of behind-the-scenes drama and shaky storylines, which showed just how much trouble WCW was in at the time. Unfortunately, Sid's career faced a major setback in 2001 when he suffered a severe leg injury during a match at the WCW's Sin pay-per-view, which put him out of action indefinitely. After WCW was purchased by the WWF in 2001, Sid faced a long road to recovery. Doctors predicted he would never run again, but Sid defied the odds, making a full recovery after intensive rehabilitation. He returned to wrestling in 2002, performing in various independent promotions and making sporadic appearances in other wrestling organizations, including a notable return to WWE in 2012 during a special Raw episode. Even after his prime years in the big leagues, Sid didn't hang up his boots right away. Instead, he kept the excitement alive by wrestling on the independent circuit. This is where he mixed it up, going toe-to-toe with not just the familiar faces from his past, but also with up-and-comers eager to make a name for themselves. It was a bit like watching a seasoned pro teacher showing the new kids some old-school tricks. Sid's final blow from the ring came in 2017, marking the end of an era that stretched over 3 exciting decades. Imagine that, 3 decades. Through those years, Sid's career was nothing short of a roller coaster. He faced it all. Jaw-dropping highs peppered with some pretty tough lows, injuries that would have ended lesser men's careers, controversies that tested his resolve. But Sid, with his sheer will and love for the sport, stood tall through it all. What made Sid really stand out was his ability to adapt. Wrestling evolves, fans change, and what worked in the 90s might not click in the 2010s. But Sid managed to stay relevant, reinventing his persona and tweaking his style to suit the changing tides. This knack for adaptation not only kept his legacy alive, but also cemented his status as one of the unforgettable icons in wrestling. For fans and fellow wrestlers alike, Sid remains a symbol of resilience and enduring appeal in the dynamic world of professional wrestling. You will be missed, Sid. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Sid's legendary career and want more fascinating wrestling stories, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications on our latest videos.
It is funny. All right. And he has the tag. I've never seen that before.
A hotel room in Minneapolis, a lifeless body, a legacy shattered. The story of Eddie Guerrero's final hours is one that still sends chills down the spines of wrestling fans everywhere. He was the ultimate underdog, always defying the odds. But in the end, even Eddie Guerrero couldn't overcome his greatest opponent. Born into the Guerrero wrestling family on October 9, 1967, Eddie followed in his father Gory Guerrero's footsteps, who was also a renowned wrestler. Eddie's nickname Latino Heat captured his clever win-at-all-costs wrestling style. Eddie started wrestling in Mexico and Japan, building his skills before making a splash in the U.S. wrestling scenes of ECW, WCW, and eventually WWE. He became especially popular during the early 2000s, when he reached peak fame on the WWE's SmackDown brand. Despite his villain roles, fans loved him for his charisma and complexity. After initial success in Mexico and teaming up with Art Barr, Eddie moved to the U.S. in 1995, wrestling for ECW and then WCW, where he won multiple championships. In 2000, disappointed with WCW, he switched to WWE. There, he teamed up with fellow wrestlers to form the Radicals. Eddie faced challenges, including being released in 2001 due to his struggles with addiction, but he made a strong comeback, forming a tag team with his nephew Chavo, and eventually winning the WWE Championship in 2004. Everything was seemingly perfect till now, until everything came crashing down. One day, he was in the ring, and the other day, he was gone. On November 13, 2005, the world of wrestling was rocked by truly sad news. Eddie Guerrero had passed away unexpectedly. He was just 38 and was found in his hotel room in Minneapolis. Even now, years later, fans still chant "Viva la Raza" at matches, a touching tribute to Eddie's character and his heritage. His story, with its highs and lows, continues to inspire and resonate within the wrestling community and beyond. It's a poignant reminder of his resilience, his spirit, and the indelible mark he left on the world of wrestling. Eddie Guerrero, a man of incredible strength and heart, is remembered not just for his in-ring prowess, but for his courageous fight against his personal demons, making his journey a lasting legacy. In the early 90s, Eddie also wrestled in Japan and won some major tournaments. His talent caught the attention of Paul Heyman, who brought him to Extreme Championship Wrestling in 1995. Eddie made a big splash there, winning the ECW World Television Championship right in his debut match. His time in ECW was highlighted by incredible matches with Dean Malenko before they both signed with WCW later that year. Back in WCW, Eddie had success but often felt overlooked for the bigger opportunities. This frustration led to a famous on-air moment where he confronted WCW President Eric Bischoff, demanding better treatment. To make a statement, Eddie formed the Latino World Order, LWO, a group that pushed for more recognition for Latino wrestlers. Unfortunately, a car accident in 1999 cut short that storyline. After recovering, Eddie returned to WCW and joined the Filthy Animals, continuing to make his mark in the wrestling world. In 2000, he left WCW and signed with the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, where he would go on to achieve even greater success. Through it all, Eddie's passion for wrestling shone through, making him one of the most respected and beloved figures in the sport. When Eddie Guerrero and his pals Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn showed up in WWF, now WWE, in January 2000 as the Radicals, they really stirred things up. They burst onto the scene during a Raw is War episode, jumping in during a match against the New Age Outlaws. Everyone initially rooted for them as the heroes, but that vibe didn't last long. Eddie's debut match teamed him up with Perry Saturn against the New Age Outlaws, but it went south fast. Attempting his famous frog splash, Eddie landed badly and dislocated his elbow. That mishap knocked him out of the game for a few weeks. The plan was for Eddie and Saturn to win, but after the injury, Eddie had to ask Road Dogg to pin him quickly to wrap up the match. Things took a turn when the Radicals sided with WWF champion Triple H and became the villains. One unforgettable moment was when Eddie rolled up to a match in a classic 1957 Chevrolet, treating the night like his prom to celebrate getting his GED. This fun twist in his character won the fans over. Despite his rising popularity, things got rocky with Chyna, especially after Eddie accidentally pinned her in a match, which led to him winning his first Intercontinental Championship. Their relationship hit more bumps when Chyna decided to pose for Playboy, which didn't sit well with Eddie, especially since he had just proposed to her. The engagement ended quickly after Eddie was caught cheating, leading to his famous line, "Two mamacitas are better than one." This drama turned Eddie back into a villain and marked the end of their relationship. By the end of 2000, the Radicals were back together, feuding with D-Generation X, DX, and scoring a big win at Survivor Series. However, Eddie lost his Intercontinental title to Billy Gunn soon after. The group stayed in the limelight, clashing with teams like the Hardy Boys and Lita. In 2001, Eddie aimed for the European Championship again and won it at WrestleMania X7. But his real-life struggles soon overshadowed his in-ring achievements. After a car accident in 1999, Eddie developed an addiction to pain medication, leading to a rehab stint. He was arrested for drunk driving in November 2001, and WWF had to let him go. Eddie didn't stay down for long. He hit the independent circuit in 2002, picking up titles before returning to WWF. He quickly reignited a feud with Rob Van Dam and grabbed the Intercontinental Championship again. His rivalry with Edge and later teaming up with his nephew Chavo to form Los Guerreros became fan favorites, even with their cheeky motto, "We lie, we cheat, and we steal." Eddie's career continued to ride high. He nabbed the United States Championship and, in a career highlight, defeated Brock Lesnar in 2004 to win the WWE Championship. His time as champion was brief but memorable, marked by an iconic celebration with Chris Benoit at WrestleMania X. Eddie Guerrero's career was a roller coaster of highs and lows, marked by his undeniable charm, humor, and a deep connection with fans. He remains one of the most beloved figures in wrestling history, celebrated for his ability to entertain and inspire. Eddie Guerrero's life was like a roller coaster, packed with big wins and tough challenges. His sudden passing left a big hole in the hearts of wrestling fans and showed just how hard the sport can be on those who entertain us. But Eddie's story is really about beating the odds. He fought personal demons, reached the top of wrestling, and won over fans with his undeniable charm and skills. His legacy goes beyond the ring. It started conversations about how wrestlers are taken care of and showed us all how to keep pushing no matter what. Today, when you hear fans chant "Viva la Raza," it's a reminder of the mark Eddie left on the sport and on people's hearts. If Eddie's journey strikes a chord with you, why not give a thumbs up, share this video, and hit that subscribe button. Join us as we keep the stories of wrestling legends alive. Catch you in the next video where we'll bring another unforgettable tale from the wrestling world. He conquered the Intercontinental Championship, headlined SummerSlam '92 at Wembley Stadium, and won over fans with his incredible strength and infectious smile. But the British Bulldog's life was cut tragically short, leaving a void in the hearts of fans worldwide. Today, we're uncovering the details of his untimely death and paying tribute to the man behind the Bulldog. Emerging from Wigan, England, Davey Boy Smith started wrestling as a teenager, quickly making a name for himself with his robust build and dynamic style. His journey led him to the WWF, where he skyrocketed to fame as one half of the British Bulldogs tag team. The thing is, Smith teamed up with his cousin Tom Billington, also known as the Dynamite Kid, and together they became the British Bulldogs. They were an exciting tag team that brought a lot of energy and innovation to the ring during the 1980s. The British Bulldogs became huge stars, especially after winning the WWF Tag Team Championship in 1986 at WrestleMania 2. Their fast-paced style and high-flying moves made them fan favorites, and they're still remembered as one of the best tag teams in wrestling history. However, the grueling wrestling schedule started taking its toll on both men, leading to physical injuries and personal struggles. When the British Bulldogs eventually went their separate ways, Davey Boy Smith stepped into the spotlight on his own. He adopted the name the British Bulldog and continued to wow fans with his incredible strength and skill. One of his biggest moments came in 1992 when he beat Bret the Hitman Hart at SummerSlam in front of a packed Wembley Stadium to win the Intercontinental Championship. That moment was especially sweet for British fans, who saw him as a hometown hero. But while things looked great on the surface, Smith had his own personal struggles behind the scenes. Wrestling is tough on the body, and like many others in the business, he started using painkillers and steroids to cope with injuries. His personal life wasn't easy either, with strained relationships and other challenges that come with fame. Still, through it all, fans continued to support him, loving what he brought to the ring. Tragically, Davey Boy Smith died on May 18, 2002, while on vacation in British Columbia, Canada. He suffered a heart attack, and it's believed that the years of physical abuse from wrestling, along with his history of substance use, played a part in his early death. At just 39, his passing came far too soon, and it was a harsh reminder of how tough the wrestling life can be. His death shook the wrestling world, especially for fans in the UK, where he had always been a hero. Those who worked with him and knew him personally spoke of his kind nature, and fans were devastated to lose such an iconic figure from the sport. Even though Davey Boy Smith's life was cut short, his legacy in wrestling is undeniable. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2020, an honor that recognized everything he gave to the sport. Fans still look back at his best matches and the energy he brought to every performance, celebrating him as one of the greats. His story is a mix of highs and lows, showing both the triumphs and the dangers that come with being a professional wrestler. The British Bulldog will always be remembered for his incredible strength, his pride in representing the UK, and the joy he brought to fans around the world. Even though he's gone, his legacy lives on, and wrestling fans will never forget the mark he made on the sport. I'm a big fan of this Bulldog, and as a tribute to him, here is a segment about his incredible life and career. But before we get into it, make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. David Smith, better known as Boy Smith, or the British Bulldog, was a wrestling legend who left an unforgettable mark on the industry. Born on November 27, 1962 in Golborne, England, David grew up in a tight-knit family. His father, Sid, mother Joyce, and his siblings were always a big part of his life. But it was his cousin, Tom Billington, who helped introduce him to wrestling. David's early life wasn't always easy. He was born with measles in his eyes, which caused him trouble growing up and led to some bullying in school. But this didn't stop him from finding his passion. He enjoyed sports like football, cricket, and diving, but it was wrestling that really captured his heart. When he was 13, his family encouraged him to start training, and it turned out to be a life-changing decision. Starting his wrestling career in the UK, Davey Boy first appeared on the popular show World of Sport and quickly gained attention. But it wasn't long before he was off to Canada, where he trained under the legendary Stu Hart in his infamous wrestling dungeon. It was a tough place, but it shaped him into one of the toughest and most talented wrestlers in the world. Teaming up with his cousin Dynamite Kid, the two became known as the British Bulldogs and soon found themselves in the World Wrestling Federation, which would make them household names. As part of the Bulldogs, Davey Boy had some of the most exciting and memorable matches of the time. One of their greatest achievements was winning the WWF Tag Team Championship at WrestleMania 2 in 1986, with rock star Ozzy Osbourne even cheering them on from ringside. The Bulldogs were a huge hit with fans, and their rivalry with teams like the Hart Foundation became the stuff of legend. But Davey Boy didn't just shine in tag team competition. He also became a major star as a singles wrestler, and his biggest moment came in 1992. That year, the WWF decided to hold their SummerSlam event at Wembley Stadium in London, and Davey Boy was chosen to be in the main event. In front of a crowd of over 80,000 fans, he took on his brother-in-law, Bret the Hitman Hart, for the Intercontinental Championship. It was an epic match, one that many fans and experts still call the best of Davey Boy's career. Winning the title in front of his hometown crowd was a moment that made him a national hero in the UK. Throughout his career, Davey Boy collected more titles, including becoming the first ever WWF European Champion in 1997. He held that title for a record 206 days, making him one of the most dominant champions of that era. Even though he never captured the World Heavyweight title, his popularity and influence were undeniable. Now, of course, life in the wrestling world wasn't always smooth for Davey Boy. He faced his fair share of challenges, including injuries and personal setbacks. There were moments when things got tough, but he always found a way to come back, stronger than ever. In the late 1990s, he became part of the Hart Foundation, a villainous group alongside Bret Hart and other family members, which created some of the most memorable and controversial moments in wrestling history, including the infamous Montreal Screwjob. Davey Boy Smith made his way back to WCW in late 1997 and immediately got into a feud with Steve McMichael, who was upset about all the new wrestlers coming in from up north. Smith teamed up with Jim Neidhart, but they didn't get much screen time, mostly appearing on WCW Thunder. They tried a few times to win the World Tag Team Championship, but came up short each time. In 1998, Smith faced a series of setbacks. He hurt his knee in April, which kept him out for a month. Then, in September, During a match at Fall Brawl, he suffered a serious back injury when he landed awkwardly on a trap door set under the ring. This caused a spinal infection that almost left him paralyzed and put him in the hospital for 6 months. Unfortunately, while he was recovering, WCW let him go because he couldn't wrestle. Smith made a comeback to WWF in 1999, embracing the company's edgier Attitude Era. Instead of his usual tights with the Union Jack, he started wrestling in jeans, and his entrance music got a rock remix. In September, he won the WWF Hardcore Championship by defeating the Big Boss Man, but gave the title back to Al Snow the same night. Smith then went after the WWF Championship and turned heel, feuding with The Rock. He headlined the Unforgiven pay-per-view in 1999 and won the European Championship in October, only to lose it in December. In May 2000, he briefly held the Hardcore Championship again. His last match was in May 2000 before leaving WWF once more. By 2002, Smith was getting ready for a return to wrestling. He even had a few tag team matches with his son, Harry Smith. Sadly, on May 18, 2002, Davey Boy passed away from a heart attack while on vacation. He was just 39. Although steroids and painkillers were found in his system, the cause of death was linked to an enlarged heart.
Years of my life playing football in front of what I consider to be the best fans in college football.
The Patriot. If you followed wrestling in the 90s, you probably remember that masked hero draped in red, white, and blue. But behind the mask was a man named Del Wilkes, and his story isn't just about the cheers and boos in the ring, it is also about a terrible end. So let's take a deep dive into the rise, fall, and tragic death of the Patriot. To understand the Patriot, we have to start with the man behind the mask, Del Wilkes. Born on December 21st, 1961 in Columbia, South Carolina, Del was always into sports. In fact, he was a star football player in high school and later played college football at the University of South Carolina. Del was a powerhouse on the field, and it seemed like he had a promising football career ahead of him. But life had other plans. After a short stint trying to make it in professional football, Del found himself drawn to a different kind of stage, professional wrestling. In the late 80s, wrestling was booming, and Del Wilkes saw an opportunity to bring his athleticism and charisma into the ring. His big break came in the early 90s when he joined Global Wrestling Federation, a promotion based in Texas. It was here that the Patriot was born. The character of the Patriot was pretty straightforward. He was the embodiment of American pride. He wore a mask with the American flag on it. His attire was all red, white, and blue, and his whole persona was about fighting for justice and the American way. And fans loved it. This was a time when wrestling was full of larger-than-life characters, and the Patriot fit right in. After making a name for himself in GWF, Del moved on to Japan's All Japan Pro Wrestling, where the Patriot continued to grow in popularity. Wrestling fans in Japan embraced him, and his matches were high energy and intense. Del Wilkes wasn't just a gimmick, he was an incredible athlete, and his performances showed it. By the mid-90s, Del's success caught the attention of the biggest wrestling company in the world, WWF. In 1997, the Patriot made his debut in the WWF, and he was thrust right into one of the hottest storylines of the time. He was positioned as a foil to Bret the Hitman Hart, who had turned heel and taken on an anti-American persona. Bret Hart had formed the Hart Foundation, a group that was pro-Canada and anti-USA, which made the Patriot the perfect opponent. The storyline wrote itself. The Patriot stood for everything Bret and his crew were against. They faced off at the In Your House, Ground Zero pay-per-view, and while the Patriot didn't win the WWF Championship, his feud with Bret Hart was memorable. It was a classic battle of good versus evil, America versus Canada, and fans ate it up. At this point, it seemed like Del Wilkes' wrestling career was on a high. He had a character that fans connected with. He was working for the biggest wrestling company in the world, and his matches were getting primetime attention. But unfortunately, things started to unravel just as quickly. Behind the scenes, Del Wilkes was dealing with serious injuries. Wrestling is tough on the body, and Del had sustained multiple injuries throughout his career. In particular, a torn triceps muscle was a major issue for him, and it wasn't something that could be easily fixed. Instead of taking time off to heal properly, Del did what a lot of wrestlers of his time did. he pushed through the pain. This decision would come back to haunt him. In 1998, Del Wilkes left WWF after less than a year with the company. His injuries had piled up, and his body couldn't take the punishment anymore. After years of being in the spotlight, Del was forced to step away from the thing he loved most, wrestling. But that wasn't the only battle he was facing. Like many wrestlers of his generation, Del Wilkes became addicted to painkillers. The injuries, combined with the need to stay on top, led him down a dark path. Prescription drugs became a way for him to manage the constant pain, but it quickly spiraled into an addiction that took control of his life. In interviews later in his life, Del was open about his struggles. He talked about how he would doctor shop, going to multiple doctors to get prescriptions for painkillers. At one point, he was taking 100 pills a day. He even resorted to using fake names to get more drugs. His addiction led to legal troubles, and in 2002, he was arrested for forging a prescription. It was a dark time for Del, and for a while, it seemed like the man who once embodied American heroism had lost his way. But Del Wilkes wasn't ready to give up. After hitting rock bottom, he sought help for his addiction. He entered rehab and began the long road to recovery. Faith played a big role in his healing process, and Del often spoke about how his Christian beliefs helped him turn his life around. In the years that followed, Del found a new purpose outside of wrestling. He worked various jobs, including as a car salesman, and he became a motivational speaker, sharing his story of addiction and recovery with others. He was honest about the mistakes he had made, and he hoped his story could help others avoid the same pitfalls. Del Wilkes may have left the wrestling ring, but he remained connected to the industry. He did interviews, made appearances at fan conventions, and stayed in touch with wrestling fans who still remembered the Patriot fondly. For many, he was still a symbol of hope and redemption. Sadly, Del Wilkes' story came to a tragic end on June 30th, 2021, when he passed away from a heart attack at the age of 59. His death shocked the wrestling community. Even though he had retired from the ring years earlier, Del Wilkes was still a beloved figure among fans and wrestlers alike. In the days following his death, many in the wrestling world paid tribute to Del. Former colleagues and fans shared memories of his time as the Patriot, remembering his larger-than-life persona and the excitement he brought to the ring. But they also remembered the man behind the mask, a man who struggled, who made mistakes, but who ultimately tried to make things right. The Patriot was more than just a wrestling character. He represented an era of wrestling when heroes were larger than life, when patriotism was a storyline that could fill arenas with cheering fans. But Del Wilkes' story is also a reminder of the darker side of the wrestling business. The injuries, the addiction, the toll that life in the ring can take. These are struggles that many wrestlers face, often with tragic results. In the end, Del Wilkes' legacy is one of both triumph and tragedy. He achieved success that most wrestlers dream of, but he also faced challenges that many can relate to. His story is a cautionary tale, but it's also one of redemption. Even in his darkest moments, Del never gave up, and that's something to admire. So as we look back on the life of the Patriot, let's remember the highs and the lows. He may no longer be with us, but his story and the lessons it holds will live on. That's the story of the Patriot Del Wilkes, a man who soared to great heights but also faced incredible struggles. As wrestling fans, we often cheer for the larger-than-life heroes in the ring without always knowing the real-life challenges they endure behind the scenes. Del Wilkes gave his all to entertain fans, putting his body and soul on the line. But like so many other wrestlers, he faced the consequences of that brutal lifestyle. Injuries, addiction, and personal battles became part of his story. Yet despite the fall, he sought redemption and spent the later years of his life trying to help others by sharing his struggles and the lessons he learned. What are your memories of the Patriot? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more wrestling stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
On 24th August 2023 in Claremont, Florida, something really tragic unfolded. A man named Wyndham Rotunda, who is our very own Bray Wyatt, unexpectedly passed away at the young age of 36. His sudden death came as a shock to everyone, especially because he seemed just fine earlier that day. The details are truly sad, but what's sad is how he spent his last few days. A legend truly turned miserable. The day started off without any signs of trouble. Bray told his girlfriend he felt a bit tired and decided to catch a nap. It seemed routine enough, but concern quickly set in when his alarm clock kept blaring for over an hour without him turning it off. His girlfriend started feeling uneasy about the silence from the other room and checked on him, only to find every partner's worst nightmare. Bray was unresponsive in bed, and his skin turned a shade of blue, a clear sign of a medical emergency. Panic struck his girlfriend. 911 was called, and CPR was attempted in a desperate bid to save his life. But despite all efforts, he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Bray had been secretly dealing with major health issues since contracting COVID-19 back in March 2023. The virus had hit him hard, leaving him with serious heart complications. In fact, just a week before his death, he was hospitalized due to these heart issues. His doctors had insisted he wear an external heart defibrillator, especially important for someone at risk of sudden cardiac arrest. However, what was truly shocking is that Bray wasn't wearing the defibrillator when he died. This critical device, designed to save lives in an instant, was later found in his car, unused. Whether it would have made a difference is something we'll never know. I wanted to get a little deeper into this, so I started reading multiple articles and engaged in Reddit. What truly shocked me was this one comment. It said that even if he were alive, he wouldn't have been able to wrestle because of his weak heart. That was pretty much declared by doctors. The loss was immense, but most rivals thought that people would forget about Bray with the passage of time. But it's people like you and me who keep the legacy of this legend alive. And if you truly are a fan, please make sure to like and subscribe, and also watch his amazing career life in the upcoming segments of this video. It's a tribute from our side to this legend. In 2009, Windham stepped into the professional wrestling world, debuting in a dark match for Florida Championship Wrestling FCW, under the names Alex Rotundo and Duke Rotundo. Bray's feud with John Cena was a highlight, challenging Cena's heroic persona and pushing him to his limits. Despite various interferences and dramatic encounters, Bray faced defeats and victories, but each match added depth to his dark cult leader character. After feuding with Cena, Bray went on to have significant matches against other top stars like Chris Jericho and Daniel Bryan, continuously evolving his character and storyline within WWE. His matches were not just about winning or losing, but were layered with storytelling, often involving the entire Wyatt family to create memorable wrestling moments. At the Royal Rumble, Wyatt really showed what he was made of, lasting nearly 47 minutes and eliminating several other wrestlers. After that, he declared himself the new face of fear. He kept racking up wins, including a big victory against Ryback, proving that he was a major force in the ring. In 2015, Wyatt brought back the Wyatt family, reuniting with Harper and introducing a new member, the massive Braun Strowman. The Wyatt family quickly became a dominant force, despite a few losses along the way. They were involved in some memorable battles, especially against the Brothers of Destruction, which kept them in the spotlight. The Wyatt family had its ups and downs, but they always stayed relevant in WWE. Wyatt's influence grew even more in 2016 when he teamed up with Randy Orton. Together, they won the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. But as these things often go, it didn't last long. Tensions within the group eventually led to betrayals, and the two clashed in some big matches. It all came to a head at WrestleMania, where Wyatt lost his title to Orton, marking a big moment in his story. In the years that followed, Wyatt's character went through a massive transformation. After taking some time away, he came back with a completely new gimmick. He introduced fans to the Firefly Funhouse, which looked like a creepy children's TV show with both happy and eerie vibes. This new direction led to the birth of The Fiend, a terrifying character with almost supernatural powers. Fans loved The Fiend, who went on to feud with legends and new stars alike, and eventually win the Universal Championship. The Fiend became one of the most exciting and talked-about characters in WWE. His matches, especially the crazy one with John Cena at WrestleMania, pushed the limits of what wrestling could be. Even though some of the match endings were a bit controversial and left fans divided, The Fiend always managed to grab everyone's attention. Wyatt returned again in 2022 after months of mysterious teasers and clues, creating a lot of buzz. Sadly, his comeback was cut short due to health issues, and in 2023, the wrestling world was heartbroken by his sudden passing. Throughout his career, Bray Wyatt was known for his creativity and his ability to create unforgettable characters. He won awards and left a lasting impression on fans. While some of his matches and storylines didn't always hit the mark, especially with how they were handled, his talent for storytelling and his unique approach to wrestling will always be remembered. Wyatt's legacy in WWE is one of innovation and creativity, and his ability to both entertain and frighten audiences ensures that he will be remembered for years to come. After his death, the wrestling world was filled with tributes. Big names like The Rock, Ric Flair, Alexa Bliss, Seth Rollins, and many others shared their memories of Bray on social media. WWE honored Bray and wrestling legend Terry Funk, who had passed away a day earlier on the August 25th episode of SmackDown. The show opened with a touching 10-bell salute, and Bray's famous rocking chair was placed on stage while fans sang "He's Got the Whole World in His Hands," a song that was often part of Bray's character. WWE also announced that all proceeds from Bray's merchandise would go to his family. His father later revealed that WWE had signed Bray to a Legends contract, meaning the money from the contract would support his children. Some wrestlers, like Braun Strowman and Karrion Kross, got matching tattoos of Bray's logo in his honor. On the August 28th episode of Raw, WWE paid tribute to Bray again. The lights were turned off, and the crowd lit up their phone lights, creating fireflies, while his rocking chair sat on the ramp. Wrestlers like Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch also honored him by wearing armbands with his name. Bray was remembered as someone who brought a unique blend of creativity and horror to wrestling, making him truly one of a kind. Bray Wyatt's tragic passing at the young age of 36 left a massive void in the wrestling world, but his legacy continues to live on in the hearts of fans. From his early days as Husky Harris to his transformation into The Fiend, Bray showed the world how much creativity and passion he had for wrestling. Despite his ups and downs, he remained a captivating figure, constantly pushing the boundaries of storytelling in WWE. Though he's no longer with us, his impact on the wrestling industry will never be forgotten. Thank you for joining me in remembering this legend. If you want to honor Bray Wyatt's memory, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more on his incredible career. Together, we can keep his legacy alive.